One mischief too many. The alien babysitter couldn't believe what the human kid did. The unlikely guardian, the sleek Viridian transport ship, descended through Earth's atmosphere with barely a whisper, its crystalline hull reflecting the late afternoon sun as it touched down in the designated diplomatic zone outside Denver. Commander Korthax emerged from the vessel, his 7-foot frame casting an imposing shadow across the landing platform. His skin had the texture of polished obsidian, with veins of bioluminescent purple coursing beneath the surface, and his arms moved with practiced military precision as he adjusted his formal diplomatic robes. Korthax had faced down space pirates in the Outer Rim, negotiated peace treaties between warring stellar nations, and once single-handedly prevented a reactor meltdown on a colony ship carrying 10,000 souls. This assignment on Earth should have been simple. A 2-week cultural exchange program while Earth's application for provisional membership in the Galactic Alliance underwent review. The unexpected part came when his assigned host, Dr. Sarah Chen, had been called away on an emergency medical mission to Antarctica, leaving him to watch over her 12-year-old son, Max. I assure you, Dr. Chen, your offspring will be in the safest possible hands, Korthax had declared through the holographic communicator, his voice resonating with the harmonic undertones typical of his species. I have protected entire star systems. One human child will pose no difficulty whatsoever. Sarah Chen's expression on the screen had been difficult to read, a mixture of gratitude and something else Korthax couldn't quite identify. Max is special, she had said carefully. He's extremely bright, curious about everything, and he has a very active imagination. Just remember that human children process the world differently than adults. Korthax had dismissed her concerns with a gentle wave of his upper right hand. How challenging could one small human be compared to navigating asteroid fields while under fire? Max Chen stood in the doorway of their modest suburban home, studying the alien with eyes that seemed to catalog every detail. The boy was small for his age, with his mother's sharp features and an unruly mop of black hair that seemed to defy several laws of physics. He wore a t-shirt featuring something called quantum mechanics. The uncertainty is certain, and shorts covered in what appeared to be mathematical equations. So you're basically a space warrior babysitting me? Max asked, his voice carrying no trace of the awe or fear that Korthax had expected from a young human encountering an alien for the first time. I prefer the term cultural guardian, Korthax replied, his translation device rendering his words in perfect English while maintaining his dignified tone. And I am here to observe and protect while learning about your species. Max's grin revealed a missing tooth. Cool. Want to see my chemistry set? The first 3 days passed without major incident, though Korthax found himself constantly surprised by the boy's questions. Max wanted to know everything: how Viridian ships achieved faster-than-light travel, whether Korthax's species had discovered the meaning of dark matter, if aliens played video games, and why Viridian blood glowed purple in the dark. The child absorbed information like a gravitational singularity, processing and recontextualizing everything in ways that Korthax found oddly unsettling. On the 4th day, things began to shift. Korthax woke from his meditation cycle to find his personal gravity adjuster had been recalibrated. Instead of the gentle Earth standard 1G he had set it for, he found himself pressed against the ceiling of the guest room, looking down at Max standing in the doorway with an innocent expression. I thought you might be homesick, Max explained, cheerfully. I researched Viridian gravity. It's 0.73 Earth standard, but inverted because your planet has a different rotational mechanism. I figured you'd sleep better with the proper orientation. Korthax carefully adjusted the device with one of his lower arms, while maintaining his dignity as best he could while upside down. How did you access my equipment? It has biometric locks, keyed to Viridian DNA. Oh, that was easy, Max said, pulling a small device from his pocket. I noticed your scales shed microscopic particles, perfectly normal for your species according to my research. I collected some, synthesized a basic protein match using my chemistry set and Mom's medical scanner, and created a temporary biofilm. It's basically like making a fake fingerprint, but way cooler because it's alien. The commander's 3 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep puzzlement among his people. You reverse-engineered Viridian security protocols using a child's chemistry set and medical equipment? And YouTube tutorials on protein synthesis, Max added helpfully. Want breakfast? I made pancakes shaped like fractals. The kitchen incident occurred that afternoon. Korthax had been preparing a traditional Viridian meal using his portable food synthesizer when Max suggested improvements. Your molecular assembler is really inefficient, the boy observed, peering at the device with intense focus. It's using way too much power for simple carbon chain reconstruction. If you adjusted the frequency modulation here, and maybe added a recursive feedback loop there. Before Korthax could stop him, Max had connected the food synthesizer to what he called his improvement kit, a terrifying amalgamation of smartphone parts, a disassembled microwave, and what appeared to be components from a gaming console. The resulting explosion of flavored vapor clouds filled the entire house with the scent of what could only be described as interdimensional fruit salad. Oops, Max said, covered in purple food paste. But hey, look, I think I accidentally created a new form of matter. Is it supposed to be singing? Indeed, the blob of synthesized food on the counter was emitting a hauntingly beautiful melody while slowly changing colors. Korthax stared at it, then at the boy, his military training providing no framework for this situation. That should not be possible with Earth technology. Earth technology is surprisingly adaptable when you think about it differently, Max replied, poking the singing food with a spoon. Humans are really good at making things work in ways they weren't designed to. Mom says it's because we evolved as tool users who had to constantly adapt to new environments. We see problems as puzzles to solve, not obstacles to stop us. The boy's words carried a weight beyond his years, and Korthax found himself reconsidering his assessment of human children. Perhaps Dr. Chen's warning had been less about concern and more about preparation. That evening, as Korthax helped Max clean the purple residue from the ceiling, it had somehow developed anti-gravity properties. The commander asked, "Why did you really reprogram my gravity adjuster?" Max paused in his scrubbing, looking thoughtful. "I wanted to see if you could adapt like humans do. You did pretty well. You didn't panic, you solved the problem, and you didn't even yell at me. Mom says the best way to understand someone is to see how they handle unexpected situations." "And what did you learn about me?" Korthax inquired, genuinely curious about the child's conclusion. "That you're not just a warrior," Max said simply. "You're a problem solver too. That's why you're good at your job, not because you're strong or scary, but because you can think differently when you need to. That's pretty human of you, actually." Korthax's bioluminescent veins pulsed brighter, a sign of amusement among his people. This small human had managed to reverse their roles, the child becoming the observer and the alien becoming the subject of study. It was humbling and fascinating in equal measure. When physics met mischief. The second week of Korthax's guardianship began with what Max called Scientific Monday. The commander had learned to approach these designated days with a mixture of anticipation and deep concern. Max's interpretation of science seemed to involve testing the boundaries of known physics while maintaining plausible deniability about any resulting chaos. "Today we're exploring quantum entanglement," Max announced over breakfast, his tablet displaying equations that Korthax recognized as graduate-level quantum mechanics, with some modifications that looked suspiciously like Viridian mathematical notation. "I've been thinking about your faster-than-light communication system. It uses quantum pairs, right?" Korthax nodded slowly, his breakfast temporarily forgotten. "That information is classified at the highest levels of the Galactic Alliance. How could you possibly know about quantum pair communication?" Max shrugged, taking a bite of his cereal. "It's the only thing that makes sense. Radio waves are too slow for intergalactic communication, and you'd need some kind of instantaneous connection. Quantum entanglement is the obvious answer. Plus, your communicator emits a really specific frequency pattern that matches theoretical, quantum resonance signatures. I measured it with my modified radio telescope." "You have a radio telescope?" Korthax asked, though at this point he wasn't sure why he was surprised. "Built it from an old satellite dish and some components from broken smartphones. Want to see what else I discovered?" Before Korthax could respond, Max had pulled him into the garage, which had been transformed into what could only be described as a junior mad scientist's laboratory. Circuit boards covered one wall, connected by a web of colorful wires that seemed to pulse with energy. Multiple computer screens displayed data streams that hurt to look at directly, and in the center of it all sat a device that looked like a metallic spider wearing a disco ball. "This is Maxwell," Max said proudly, patting the device. "My quantum state manipulator. It's basically a really primitive version of your technology, but it works on the same principles." Korthax examined the device with all three eyes, his mind struggling to process what he was seeing. The boy had somehow created a functioning quantum manipulator from household electronics and spare parts. It was crude, inefficient, and probably violated several laws of physics, but it was undeniably working. "What does it do?" Korthax asked, though he suspected he might regret the answer. "Watch this." Max activated the device, and suddenly there were 2 of him standing in the garage, then 4, then 8. Each copy moved independently, grinning at Korthax's shocked expression. "Temporary quantum duplicates," all the Maxes said in unison. "They only last about 30 seconds before the wave function collapses, but it's really useful for doing chores." As if to demonstrate, the quantum copies scattered throughout the garage, organizing tools, sweeping the floor, and sorting electronic components with perfect coordination. Korthax's military mind immediately recognized the tactical applications of such technology, even as his rational mind insisted this should be impossible for a pre-spaceflight civilization to achieve. How was all he could manage. The original Max, or at least Korthax thought it was the original, explained excitedly, "Your people think linearly about quantum mechanics, very organized, very structured. Humans think chaotically. We embrace the uncertainty principle instead of trying to control it. By accepting that quantum states are naturally unstable, I figured out how to surf the probability waves instead of trying to direct them." The duplicates flickered and vanished one by one, leaving only the original Max standing there with a slightly dizzy expression. "Side effects include mild nausea and temporary synesthesia. I can taste purple for about an hour afterward." That afternoon, the situation escalated when Max decided to test his theories on a larger scale. He had connected his quantum manipulator to what he called the probability matrix. Essentially, the neighborhood's Wi-Fi routers networked together to create a distributed quantum computing system. Every electronic device has quantum components. Now, Max explained as he typed commands into his laptop, processors use quantum tunneling, and memory storage involves quantum spin states. If you link enough of them together and synchronize their quantum fluctuations, the air in the garage shimmered, and suddenly Korthax could see through walls. Not metaphorically, he could literally perceive every object within a 3-block radius as if the matter between them had become transparent. He could see Mrs. Peterson next door practicing yoga, Mr. Liu across the street building a model airplane, and approximately 15 cats engaged in what appeared to be a territorial dispute in the nearby park. "Quantum radar!" Max exclaimed, his eyes wide with excitement. "We're seeing quantum probability clouds, not physical matter. Everything that might exist is visible simultaneously until observed directly." Korthax watched in fascination as a delivery drone passed through what should have been solid walls, its probability cloud splitting into multiple possible paths before collapsing into a single trajectory. "This is extraordinary. My people took centuries to develop this technology, and you've created it from Wi-Fi routers and a borrowed quantum processor from Mom's medical scanner," Max admitted. "But yeah, basically Wi-Fi routers. Humans are really good at repurposing technology. We see something designed for one thing and immediately think of 12 other uses for it." The quantum visibility field collapsed after 10 minutes, but not before every cat in the neighborhood had somehow congregated in Max's backyard, drawn by what Max theorized was quantum curiosity. The animal's natural sensitivity to quantum fields had been amplified by the experiment. "We should probably feed them," Max suggested as 23 cats stared at them through the garage window with unsettling synchronization. While distributing cans of tuna to their feline visitors, Korthax asked the question that had been bothering him. "Max, why are you really showing me all this? You could have kept your invention secret." Max was quiet for a moment, scratching a tabby cat behind its ears. Because humans need friends out there, he said finally, gesturing toward the sky. When we join the Galactic Alliance, other species might think we're just primitive newcomers, but we're not. We're different, yeah, but different doesn't mean inferior. We solve problems by breaking them, understanding them, and rebuilding them better. That's our superpower. You want me to report this to the Alliance, Korthax realized. I want you to understand us, Max corrected. Really understand us. Not just our technology or our biology, but how we think. Because when humans finally get out there, really out there among the stars, we're going to change everything. Not through conquest or conflict, but through creativity. We're going to look at all that advanced alien technology and ask the question that defines our species. What else can it do? One of the cats meowed and began floating, surrounded by a faint purple glow. That's new, Max said, pulling out his scanner. I think we accidentally gave them temporary quantum levitation abilities. Korthax watched as more cats began drifting upward, purring contentedly as they floated through the air. Your mother is going to be very concerned when she returns. Nah, Max said confidently, making notes on his tablet. Mom's a xenobiologist. She'll probably want to write a paper on it. Quantum field effects on terrestrial felines sounds like something she'd love. That evening, as they worked together to coax the floating cats down from the trees they'd drifted into, Korthax found himself genuinely laughing, a sound like harmonious wind chimes that he hadn't made in years. This human child had shown him something his military training and diplomatic experience had never revealed. That chaos and creativity were not opposites of order and logic, but complementary forces that, when combined, could achieve the impossible. The revelation. The crisis began at 3:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. Korthax's emergency communicator erupted in a cascade of warning signals that immediately brought him to full alertness. His training kicked in as he decoded the transmission. A Zorvath mining vessel had experienced a catastrophic drive failure and was falling toward Earth. The ship's antimatter containment was failing, and if it impacted the planet, the explosion would vaporize Denver and irradiate half of Colorado. Korthax burst into Max's room to find the boy already awake, surrounded by holographic displays showing the incoming vessel's trajectory. I know, Max said before Korthax could speak. My quantum scanner picked up the gravitational anomaly 20 minutes ago. I've been running calculations. The Galactic Alliance is sending emergency response vessels, but they won't arrive for another 40 minutes, Korthax said, his voice tight with controlled panic. The ship will impact in 32 minutes. Max's fingers flew across multiple keyboards simultaneously, his eyes darting between screens. The Zorvath ship is a Model 7 mining vessel, right? Those use magnetic field manipulation for asteroid processing. Yes, but I don't see how. And your ship has Viridian crystal core technology that responds to harmonic frequencies. Max continued, his mind clearly racing through possibilities. If we could create a harmonic magnetic field strong enough, we might be able to grab the mining ship and slow its descent. Korthax's three eyes widened. That would require precise calibration of incompatible technologies and power levels that would burn out my ship's core in minutes. Not if we distribute the load, Max said, jumping up and grabbing his quantum manipulator. Remember how I networked the Wi-Fi routers? We can do the same thing on a citywide scale. Every electronic device in Denver becomes part of a massive electromagnetic net. The magnitude of what the boy was suggesting was staggering. You want to turn an entire city into a makeshift tractor beam? Not just the city, Max corrected, pulling on his jacket. The planet. We need to hack into every satellite, every radio, tower, every cell phone, every electric car, every smart toaster within a 1,000-mile radius. Create a distributed electromagnetic field that pulses in harmony with your ship's crystals. It's completely insane, but it might work, Korthax finished, his military mind already seeing the tactical applications. What do you need? Access to your ship's harmonic controls, every computer you can find, and probably about 6 gallons of energy drinks, Max said, already heading for the garage. Oh, and we need to wake up some people. What followed was 28 minutes of controlled chaos that would later be classified at the highest levels of both Earth and Galactic Alliance security. Max had somehow managed to create a virus. He called it a helpful virus that spread through the internet at near light speed, converting every connected device into part of his electromagnetic network. Korthax used his diplomatic channels to alert Earth's authorities who, faced with the alternative of nuclear winter, authorized the most unprecedented hack in human history. Connecting to Chinese satellite network, done. Indian telecommunications, grid, done. The entire North American power grid, done. Max rattled off, his fingers moving so fast they blurred. Mrs. Peterson's smart fridge, that one's being stubborn. Got it. Korthax monitored the incoming ship's trajectory, while simultaneously adjusting his vessel's harmonic frequency to match Max's calculations. The boy had created an algorithm that somehow accounted for the electromagnetic interference of Earth's magnetosphere, the gravitational effects of the moon, and what he called the collective electrical aura of 7 billion humans and their devices. 10 minutes to impact, Korthax announced, watching the Zorvath vessel burning through the atmosphere like a falling star visible even in the pre-dawn darkness. Almost there, Max muttered, sweat beading on his forehead as he made final adjustments. We need more power, a lot more power. Where from? We're already using everything. Max looked up, his eyes bright with desperate inspiration. The quantum cats. They're still charged with quantum field energy. It was perhaps the most bizarre sentence ever uttered during a planetary crisis, but Korthax didn't argue. They ran, outside where the neighborhood cats, still glowing faintly purple and floating at various heights, had gathered as if sensing the emergency. I need you all to focus your energy, Max said to the cats, his voice serious and urgent. The cats, in defiance of all known feline behavior, seemed to understand. They arranged themselves in a perfect circle, their combined glow intensifying. Quantum. Entanglement with macro-scale biological entities, Korthax breathed in amazement. This is impossible. Impossible is just another word for hasn't been done yet, Max replied, connecting his quantum manipulator to the cat circle with cables he had somehow crafted from Christmas lights and aluminum foil. Initiating planetary electromagnetic net, now! The effect was instantaneous and breathtaking. Every electronic device within 1,000 miles pulsed in unison, creating an aurora borealis effect that painted the sky in impossible colors. The falling Zorvath ship, now visible as a bright fireball, suddenly slowed as if hitting an invisible cushion. The electromagnetic field, harmonized through Korthax's ship and amplified by quantum-charged cats, caught the vessel like a gentle hand catching a falling egg. It's working, Korthax exclaimed, monitoring the descent rate. Speed decreasing, containment holding, we're actually doing it. But the strain was enormous. Electronic devices across the city began smoking and sparking. The cats yowled in harmony, their glow flickering. Max's quantum manipulator started making concerning grinding noises. We can't hold it much longer, Max shouted over the electrical. Chaos. Just 15 more seconds, Korthax replied, his forearms working frantically to maintain the harmonic frequency. Those 15 seconds felt like hours. The Zorvath ship descended slowly, controlled, its antimatter containment stabilizing as the descent pressure decreased. Finally, with a sound like the world's largest sigh of relief, the mining vessel touched down in an empty field outside the city, its emergency systems engaging to prevent explosion. The electromagnetic net collapsed. Across Denver, every electronic device simultaneously shut down and rebooted. The cats stopped glowing and floating, landing on their feet with typical feline dignity before scattering back to their homes. Max's quantum manipulator gave one final spark and dissolved into a puddle of melted plastic and dreams. We did it, Max said, then promptly fainted from exhaustion. Hours later, after the Galactic Alliance emergency teams had secured the Zorvath vessel and its grateful crew, after Earth's governments had begun processing what had just happened, and after Max had been revived with chocolate milk and pizza, Korthax stood before his holographic communicator, delivering his report to the Alliance Council. The humans are not ready for membership because they lack advanced technology, Korthax said, his tone formal but with an undercurrent of something else. They are ready because they possess something far more valuable, the ability to transcend the limitations of their technology through creativity, cooperation, and sheer stubborn refusal to accept impossibility. The council members, beings from a dozen different worlds, listened in stunned silence as Korthax described the events, focusing particularly on how a 12-year-old human boy had coordinated a planetary defense using household electronics and quantum-charged cats. This child, the Altarian counselor said slowly, he created a planetary defense grid from primitive technology? Not just created, Korthax corrected. He imagined it, then made reality conform to his imagination. This is what humans do. They look at the universe not as it is, but as it could be, and then they bridge that gap with whatever tools they have available. A paperclip, a rubber band, the entire electromagnetic output of their civilization. To humans, these are all just tools waiting to be repurposed. And you believe they're ready to join the galactic community? The Zorvath counselor asked, particularly interested given that humans had just saved one of their ships. No, Korthax said, causing surprised murmurs. They will never be ready, by our standards. But perhaps it's time we considered that our standards might be the limitation. The humans will not join the Galactic Alliance. They will transform it, improve it, and probably violate several laws of physics in the process. The question is not whether we're ready for them, but whether we're brave enough to embrace the chaos they'll bring. The vote was unanimous. Back on Earth, Max and Korthax stood in the backyard looking up at the stars that would soon be humanity's playground. Dr. Chen had returned from Antarctica to find her son being nominated for both a Nobel Prize and adoption by several alien species who wanted to study his unique approach to physics. So, what happens now? Max asked, absently petting one of the quantum cats that had refused to leave. Now your species prepares for the greatest adventure in its history, Korthax replied. The universe has no idea what's coming. Max grinned, that same mischievous expression that had terrified and delighted Korthax for 2 weeks. Yeah, we tend to have that effect. Hey, do you think alien worlds have cats? Because I have some ideas about quantum-enhanced pets that could revolutionize interstellar travel. Korthax's bioluminescent veins pulsed with what his species would recognize as fond exasperation. Max, please don't break the universe. No promises, Max replied cheerfully. But I'll try to improve it while I'm at it. As they watched, a new star appeared in the sky. Not a star at all, but the Galactic Alliance station that would serve as humanity's first embassy among the stars. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one where chaos and creativity would dance among the cosmos, and where a species that had learned to split the atom with controlled explosions would now turn its attention to the fundamental forces of reality itself. The universe, Korthax reflected, would never be the same. And that, he had learned, was exactly what made humans magnificent. The Academy invitation 6 months had passed since the electromagnetic net incident, and Earth buzzed with preparation for its new role in the galactic community. The world had changed overnight when footage of Max Chen's quantum cats and improvised planetary defense system leaked onto the internet, becoming the most watched video in human history within hours. Now, construction crews worked around the clock building Earth's first spaceport in Nevada, while scientists worldwide collaborated on understanding the alien technologies being shared through the new embassy. Max Chen had become something of a reluctant celebrity. Every university on Earth wanted him as a student despite his age. Tech companies offered him blank checks for consultation work. The Galactic Alliance had extended an unprecedented invitation for him to attend their prestigious academy on Centauri Prime, typically reserved for the brightest minds from civilizations with at least 1,000 years of spaceflight experience. Sat in his rebuilt garage laboratory, now officially designated as a research facility by 3 different governments, staring at the holographic acceptance letter floating before him. Korthax stood nearby, having extended his stay on Earth as humanity's official liaison and unofficially as Max's mentor and friend. You haven't responded yet, Korthax observed, his purple veins pulsing with curiosity. The Academy's invitation expires in 3 days. Max spun in his chair, a modified office seat he'd equipped with magnetic levitation after deciding wheels were inefficient. I know. It's just, I'd be the first human to leave the solar system, the youngest student in the Academy's history, the only representative of a species that just learned aliens exist 6 months ago. You saved a planet using Wi-Fi routers and cats, Korthax reminded him. I think you can handle academic pressure. Dr. Sarah Chen entered the garage carrying a tray of sandwiches and what she called thinking juice, a combination of coffee, energy drink, and something green that Max suspected came from her xenobiology lab. She'd taken the changes in stride, the way she handled everything from her husband's death to discovering her son had befriended an alien military commander. Still overthinking? She asked, setting down the tray. That's not like you. Usually you jump first and figure out the physics while falling. This is different, Mom, Max said, accepting a sandwich. If I mess up at the Academy, it doesn't just reflect on me. It reflects on all humans. What if they think we're all weird because I tried to quantum entangle their lunch or something? Sarah laughed, ruffling his perpetually messy hair. Sweetheart, they already think we're weird. We're the species that invented both nuclear weapons and ice cream. We put pineapple on pizza and then argued about it for decades. We're chaos incarnate, and that's exactly why the universe needs us. A soft chime indicated someone at the front door. Max's security system, upgraded with Viridian recognition protocols, identified the visitor as Zara, the young Altarian xenobiologist who'd arrived 2 weeks ago to study Earth's remarkable biodiversity. She entered the garage with the fluid grace of her species, her silvery skin reflecting the afternoon light in rippling patterns. Forgive the intrusion, Zara said, her voice melodious like water over stones. I heard about your dilemma, Max. Chen, perhaps an outside perspective would help? Max had worked with Zara on several projects, including figuring out why Earth squirrels seemed immune to Altarian telepathy. She was only 40 in Altarian years, which made her roughly equivalent to a human teenager, and she understood the pressure of representing one species better than most. When I first left Altair for my studies, Zara continued, settling onto a hovering cushion she'd brought with her, I was terrified of embarrassing my people. We're known for our logic, our serenity, our careful thought. Then on my first day at a multi-species conference, I accidentally laughed at a Rigelian's joke. Do you know what Altarian laughter sounds like? Max shook his head. Zara demonstrated, producing a sound like a tornado made of wind chimes having an argument with a saxophone. Everyone in the garage jumped. Exactly, Zara said, her silvery skin flushing lavender with embarrassment. I thought I'd ruined everything, but you know what happened? The Rigelian laughed too, then the Zorvath delegates, then everyone. My unwanted chaos broke the tension that had been building for days. Sometimes being different isn't a weakness. It's exactly what a situation needs. But the Academy is serious, Max protested. They study advanced physics, xenopolitics, cosmic engineering. They probably expect someone mature and professional, not a kid who names his inventions and talks. To cats. Korthax's 3 eyes aligned, a sign of sudden realization. Max, do you remember what you told me when we first met the quantum effects? About humans seeing problems differently? That we're good at repurposing things? More than that. You said, humans embrace uncertainty instead of trying to control it. The Academy has been teaching the same approaches to science for millennia. They're brilliant approaches, but they're also predictable. You could bring something they desperately need. Unpredictability. Dr. Chen pulled up a holographic display showing the Academy's recent published papers. Look at their research. Topics. Standardized warp field equations. Predictive models for stellar evolution. Normalized quantum tunneling protocols. Everything is about making the universe fit into neat, organized boxes. And you're the kid who put the universe in a blender to see what would happen, Zara added with what Max had learned was an Altarian smile. That terrifies them, but it also might save them from their own stagnation. Max stood up, pacing around the garage, his mind racing through possibilities. He stopped at his memorial wall, pictures and pieces from his various experiments, the melted remains of his first quantum manipulator, a photo of the floating quantum cats, a certificate from NASA thanking him for services to planetary defense using unconventional methods, a crayon drawing he'd made at age 5 of himself riding a dinosaur in space, which now seemed less impossible than it once had. "If I go," Max said slowly, "I won't try to be what they expect. I'll be exactly who I am, a chaos gremlin with a physics degree." "You don't have a physics degree," his mother pointed out. "I'll have one by next month. MIT fast-tracked me after the whole saving the world thing, but that's not the point." Max turned to face them, his eyes bright with determination. "The point is, maybe the Academy needs someone to break their experiments, ask the wrong questions, and accidentally discover 12 new laws of physics while trying to make better coffee." Korthax's bioluminescent veins brightened with approval. "Now that sounds like the Max Chen who saved Earth with household appliances." "There's one condition," Max said, his expression serious. "I want to bring samples of Earth culture with me. Music, art, food, games. If I'm representing humanity, I'm representing all of it, not just our science. The Academy might object to non-academic materials," Zara warned. Max grinned, the mischievous expression that had become legendary among Earth's scientific community. "They invited me knowing who I am. If they wanted a conventional student, they wouldn't have chosen the kid who turned Denver into an electromagnet. Besides, I have a theory that alien species can learn a lot from human entertainment. Our movies alone are basically training simulations for impossible scenarios." Dr. Chen hugged her son tightly. "So you're going?" "I'm going," Max confirmed. "But first I need to finish my latest project." He led them to a corner of the garage covered by a tarp. Pulling it aside revealed a strange device that looked like a telescope had been crossbred with a disco ball and taught to levitate. "Behold the Universal Translator 2.0, Max announced proudly. "The current ones just translate language, but communication is more than words. This translates intent, emotion, cultural context, and even humor. It'll help prevent those awkward moments when someone accidentally declares war because they used the wrong tense." "How does it work?" Korthax asked, examining the device with professional interest. "Quantum emotional resonance," Max explained. "Every species has unique brainwave patterns associated with feelings and concepts. The translator creates a quantum bridge between different consciousness types, allowing true understanding beyond mere words. I tested it on the cats. Turns out they've been sarcastically commenting on human behavior this whole time." "Of course, they have," Sarah laughed. "That explains so much." Over the next 2 days, Max threw himself into preparations with characteristic intensity. He packed not just scientific equipment but also what he considered essential human culture. A guitar, a chess set, a collection of science fiction novels, recordings of everything from Beethoven to K-pop, a jar of peanut butter, which preliminary tests suggested was safe for most alien digestive systems, and inexplicably a rubber duck. "It's for debugging," Max explained when Korthax questioned the duck. "Ancient human programming tradition. You explain your problem to the duck and somehow the solution becomes clear. I figure it might work with alien technology too." The night before departure, Denver threw Max a farewell party that turned into an impromptu festival. Scientists, government officials, and ordinary citizens gathered to wish him luck. The quantum cats made an appearance, having apparently retained some residual ability to sense important events. Mrs. Peterson brought cookies shaped like spaceships. Mr. Liu gifted Max a model of the International Space Station, so you don't forget where you came from. General Martinez, who had initially wanted to weaponize Max's inventions before witnessing the boy turn a military drone into a pizza delivery system during a demonstration, shook his hand firmly. "You're representing all of us out there, son. Show them what humans are made of. Chaos and curiosity, mostly," Max replied, making the general laugh. As the evening wound down, Max found himself on the roof with Korthax, looking up at the stars he'd soon be traveling among. The alien commander had become more than a mentor. Over the past months, he'd become family. "Are you afraid?" Korthax asked gently. "Terrified," Max admitted. but also excited. It's like every Christmas and birthday and science fair combined, then launched into space. I might fail spectacularly, but at least it'll be an interesting failure. You won't fail, Korthax said with certainty. You might explode some things. Definitely will violate several academic protocols and probably accidentally revolutionize their understanding of physics. But you won't fail. Do you know why? Max shook his head. Because you never try to be anything other than yourself. And yourself happens to be exactly what the universe needs. Someone who looks at the impossible and asks, but what if we tried it anyway? The next morning, at the newly constructed spaceport, Max stood before the Viridian transport that would take him to the Alliance station, then on to Centauri Prime. Earth's media broadcasted the moment globally. His mother hugged him one last time, slipping something into his pocket. For when you feel alone, she whispered. Later, aboard the ship, as Earth grew smaller in the viewport, Max pulled out her gift, a photo of their family, including his late father, standing in front of their house. On the back, she'd written, "The universe is vast, but love travels faster than light." Korthax entered the observation deck where Max stood. The Academy sent a message. They've prepared a formal reception for your arrival. Max's grin was pure mischief. How formal. 700 distinguished professors, the Academy Council, and representatives from 53 species. Perfect, Max said, pulling out his guitar. I should practice my entrance. Do you think they've ever heard Bohemian Rhapsody? Korthax's veins pulsed with fond exasperation. They're about to. As the ship jumped to hyperspeed, carrying humanity's first student to the stars, Max strummed the opening notes of the song. He was 13 years old, armed with impossible theories, a universal translator, and an unshakable belief that the universe's greatest discoveries came from asking, what happens if we do this? The Academy had no idea what was coming. The universe would never be quite the same.